Hello, drawing and painting. So here's our demonstration on how to draw a sugar skull, and this is our Dia de los Muertos project. And I love that this is also going to be a great setup for when we learn how to draw faces later on. So there's lots of different designs that you can see in this particular example of a sugar skull, and I want to remind you that you can bring your own creativity to this, and every single skull that you create can be different, and as far as the designs, be experimental and think about how you want to make this your own. You're welcome to follow along with the designs that you see here that I do in the demonstration, but I invite you to be curious and see what else you can come up with as well. So checking out this skull, right, you're seeing a version of a completed rendition of a sugar skull here, but we're going to take a look at it and break the bigger picture down into its main components. So that takes us to something like this, where we have the bigger shape broken down into the more simple shapes that will allow us to just find a place to get started. So we're going to be getting started with the circle that we see here, and using that as a guide for the rest of it, for adding upon that. So this is something that will come up in drawing again and again. You're looking at something complex and making it more simple so that you can figure out how the different parts relate to each other. So moving on to just a blank page, and I'm adding in that main circle that we see. So just starting off with a pencil. Any pencil will do. And I'm going to put in my circle. And I don't expect anybody to be able to draw a perfect circle straight off the bat. I know that I certainly can't. So you might find that you want to make it bigger or smaller, or that it's lumpy, and make whatever adjustments you need. Often with drawings, we might have 5, 6 lines, and then we pick one out of them. Right, so if you have extras you know you're not going to use, you can go ahead and erase them so that it's easier for you to focus on the ones you think are working. Okay, so I think my circle's getting pretty close here. I see I could probably make it a little bit rounder over here. And that'll do for now. It's pretty close. So I'm going to take this circle and I'm going to divide it into quarters. All right, so I've got my quarters divided. I'll come back to that later. And now I'm going to find a point that's just a little bit inwards here. So like if I were to break this down into quarters here, it would be in about 1/4 of the way. But you can just eyeball it on the other side, so I'm going to be doing it about here. And just do a line extending down. And I'm just making it kind of approximate. So now take a look at this distance here. And you could even use your pencil to mark whatever that distance is. Sometimes I even use my finger. And then you're going to be carrying down that distance down to here. So now this is in thirds. So I've got 1/3 at the bottom. I've got 1/3 in the middle, and I've got 1/3 at the top. Now I have these lines extending straight here, and now I'm going to make a curve that connects upward to them. And there's this kind of part where it bends that ends up being the chin. And we want that to be in the center. So if we imagine this line going down here, we could even continue that line. We want it to be centered within the place where it curves. And like I was saying about the designs, how you bring yourself into it, you can think about what you want to add to it. If you wanted to put sunglasses on your sugar skull, or or hearts, or think about what kind of different elements you want to use. And you can really make it your own. We're just first focusing on the structure of the skull, which, like I said, will help when you're drawing faces later on because they have more or less the same proportions. So I now have that jaw that's mostly in place here. And if you notice that there's kind of uneven parts of it, you can think about making any adjustments. Like I'm seeing that it's kind of extending a little bit further on this side. I'm going to make it a little bit more symmetrical to what I'm seeing on the other side. So as you notice things, make adjustments. Right? Nobody goes in knowing everything. So I have my jaw, and now I'm going to be adding in circles that are going like this. This will be like the middle point of the circle. And I'm adding in little circles here, which are going to be for the cheekbones. And notice I go around and around and around when I do circles, and it's okay. All right, so now we have our cheekbones in place. Let's get our eye sockets. So eye sockets, if we're drawing a more realistic skull, are not going to be perfect circles. They're more like sideways eggs. So I'm going to be drawing in those eye sockets that are sort of like something like this. And it's overlapping over the circle that we just made for the jawbone. And they're about the same size, right? Just like our eyes are the same size. So if we need to make any adjustments to get them about the same size, then you can. Okay, so once those are in place, and I'm seeing that they're not quite centered, I want this middle line to be right in between the two eyes. So if you need to make any adjustments to put them more in the middle, it's good to take a moment now to do that. Remember, artists often have many lines, and then choose the one that works best for what they're doing. All right, so next up we are going to be doing the socket, the hole for where the nose is on a skull, and that's kind of like an upside down heart. So as far as figuring out where we're going to put it, if we break this area, this bottom half of our circle into thirds, those aren't perfect thirds, but it's about thirds, we're going to be doing the nose in the bottom third. So we got that upside down heart. Notice how that inward point of the heart is on the edge of the circle, and the top point of the heart is at the second third on the inside there. As far as just getting some reference points. So I've got that placed now. And now again we're going to go into thirds, and we're going to break down this into thirds. And this top third, so this is breaking into thirds, the point between the bottom of the chin and the point of the nose. And then I broke that into thirds here. And I'm going to take that top third and I'm going to put in a soft little curve here. It's going to be for the mouth, for the teeth, more specifically. So you can see I have this line here, and that's important because that is going to be letting us know where the middle line is for the teeth. Generally, there's not one tooth right in the middle, right? There's the space between our teeth. So this will keep our teeth in alignment. So that middle line, if you don't already have it, go add in a middle line just for the center of the teeth that you have here. And I'm going to start drawing in some teeth. I can fit 4 here, but if you can fit more, you can decide what you want to do there. And I'm trying to keep them more or less the same size. You might notice teeth are a little bit bigger right in the front, but then they get smaller to the sides. That's okay if you want to take that approach. And then I'm doing the mirror image on the bottom, adding those teeth in. Okay, so now I have the basics in place for my skull. And you can make any little adjustments that you need at this point. Like I see that there's some kind of adjustments that would help out the eyes so that they're more symmetrical. So whatever little micro adjustments you want to make at this point. And I see that one cheekbone is quite a bit higher than the other. So drawing is not about having everything be perfect on the first try. That's not how it works. But it is about staying aware, right? So if you're paying attention, if you're looking, you're going to start to notice things that don't look or feel right to you, and then you can make adjustments based on that. Okay, so now to keep going with the design that I have here, right, we can see that in the reference that I'm using, that there is a curve here, and that the circles are actually not really circles, they're kind of squared off at the ends there, and then it curves back into the top of the teeth. So let's just get that line in place now. Putting that to the side. And it'll start with a curve that goes from the top here, and then some kind of rounded edges on this sort of square, and then another curving arc that curves around and it goes to the top of the teeth area. So I'm going to do that same thing on the other side. So it's the mirror image. So a curve that goes to the outer part of the circle for the cheekbone, and then a soft corner, and then another soft corner, and then it curves in to the top of the teeth. So now I have them on both sides. Now I'm going to be looking at this area that I'm seeing on the bottom part of the jawbone, right? So there's like a curved line that goes and it connects between the cheekbone and the bottom row of the teeth. So I'm going to get that line in there now. So the top point is around here, and it's curving downward and then kind of scooping up into the bottom row of the teeth. And you're trying to get the general idea. Remember, drawing is about staying aware, noticing details, right? But it's not about being perfect. So the mirror image on the other side, curving down and scooping around to the teeth. Now, one of the things I'm noticing when I look at this skull reference is that the sides here, they curve inward a little bit, right? It's not a perfectly straight line there. So I'm noticing that curve. There's also a bit of a curve that's happening even here, just it's really subtle. So I'm going to go and add those in now, because right now it's a straight line in the drawing that I'm making. So I'm going to add in the curve that I was observing. So it's kind of scooping inward. And I could even also add a slight scoop inward here. And then on the other side, the same thing, scooping inward. So now I'm starting to have the form of the skull that I wanted, but I have a lot of extra lines in place from what I was using as the guide. So I'm going to take a moment now to delete those extra lines so that they don't confuse me. Delete. I've been spending a lot of time on the computer, you can tell. To erase those extra lines. And if you accidentally delete anything that you need, erase anything that you need, then you can go ahead and add it back afterwards. So I don't need these lines on the side anymore. I don't need the cross lines that I was using to split up the skull. So this just gives you that base foundation. Now comes the creative part of deciding what kind of additions you might want to make. And you could do a little bit of research before you get started here to think about what kind of designs you want to add into it, because there's infinite possibilities of what you might want to do when you're decorating this skull. So I've cleaned it up a bit. I could clean it up more, but I'll leave it here for now. And then see whatever kinds of little adjustments you might want to make. Okay, so now I can look in to see what I might want to add. I will add in some flowers to the side. So I'm going to start with just the inner part of the flower. I'll do it on both sides. I could fill that with a design, maybe. And those of you who did the Zentangle project earlier, you can think about any Zentangle designs you might want to put into your skull. So I'll make these like sunflowers. This is the inside part of the sunflower. And then I'll give it petals. I'm using a symmetrical design for what I'm doing, so that means that whatever I do on one side, I'm going to be doing the same on the other, and that's something that you can consider using in your design. It's not a requirement. And I can have some viney designs coming off of it with some leaves. Right, so sometimes we take inspiration from what other people have done, but then we bring our own approach to it. So since I'm doing it symmetrically, I'm going to be thinking about what the mirror image of each part that I'm doing is. So I'm doing one part and then I'm coming back to the other side and adding it in before it gets too complex. And then I can think about what I want to put in the center of the skull. So let's see, I think I will add in a big heart. And some little points coming off of it. And you could put designs inside of designs. So don't be afraid to experiment and try new things. You don't have to do what I'm doing. But one of the things you probably will see is common with the designing of sugar skulls is some kind of symmetry. So the design repeating on both sides. And I'm going to do a design going around my eye sockets of a scalloped edge. That's what this is called. It's kind of similar to how we were doing the teeth. And simple things like basic shapes and dots, like hearts and teardrops, or little leaf shapes. They are great design elements. And when you repeat them, it could look really awesome. So there's a scalloped edge going around. I could go back in and put little dots. You could think about what you're going to put inside of your eyes. You can put eyeballs, you could put more hearts, you could put flowers. You could put other kinds of designs. You could use another piece of paper to practice what you want to do in this one. I recommend keeping everything in pencil in the beginning so you can make any kind of adjustments that you want. And I think I will. Maybe I'll put diamonds inside. Let's try that. Like little stars. Just to show that you can do all sorts of stuff, right? Last time I tried something different. And I'm going to put hearts inside of my hearts for the nose. Maybe some more little diamonds on the side here, like we had in the reference. You could think about any kind of other little elements that you want to add in. Go do some little leaf shapes. Have fun with this experiment. Don't be afraid of yours being different. And adding in some more designs here, and I can add in another sunflower like I did on the top. Or it could be a different kind of flower. I encourage you, like we've been talking about the value of researching when we are making artwork. If there's things that inspire you, collect images. You can always look to them when you're drawing. We're bringing all of that stuff that we love into our work. So think about what makes you happy, what you think looks cool, and collect them. And adding in some leaf designs and some spirals. Add in some more here. These are the fun little choices that make our work unique. So once you have that in place, then you can start to think about how you are going to be using color in your artwork. But this is an idea of how we can get going with a sugar skull drawing design, and I hope that you have fun with it. And next we'll be exploring color theory to decorate them.